Guys, I am so sorry about what just happened. You know, you tell yourself, I've been in this industry for about 10 years working in films, but I'm terrible with technical stuff. I do not know how to work Skype. How's that for you? Anyways, you don't need to know Skype or Zoom to be a good animator. All right, let's get going. All right, so where was I? I was at so DreamWorks. I mean, sorry for we didn't have sound there, but that's okay. So after DreamWorks, which is this year, well, for the past few years, I've been working with a few colleagues from Weta Digital down in New Zealand during Avatar. We were so tired of working on such a big project. It took a lot out of us, a lot of years out of us. The movie took about 3 years, but it really felt more like 10 years. And that we decided we wanted to do something outside, something fun, something different. So a few colleagues and I decided to work on a video game together, and so hence the game that we started called Deadwood. But it's only recently that we decided, wow, this is what we want to do. We want to work full time on this game and make this game happen. So we built this studio right here and decided to go full time onto making this game. So I left DreamWorks officially in May. Was my last day, my last days at DreamWorks, and I came down here in Florida, Orlando, Florida, to build my own studio and work on my own game. And we've been doing this for about 6, 7 months, 8 months maybe. And we're looking forward to our game releasing in 2017. So, right now I've been also freelancing for other studios like Eidos and Square Enix. I just finished some work on Tomb Raider, the new Tomb Raider coming out, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and I'm also animating on Deus Ex. How is it called? Mankind Revived or Mankind something? There's the new Deus Ex coming out soon. So it's been a lot of fun, animating, throughout all these years, and I still love it. I still enjoy it, and there is no other jobs I see myself doing other than being an artist and animating and being in the film industry or the game industry. Being in the creative industry to me is where I want to be, getting paid for being creative and making people laugh or making people, have go through a journey that I created is just amazing. So Vadim gave me some questions here that I'm going to go through. And if you have any more questions, and if Vadim feels these questions are good questions, we're going to throw them here. But I'm going to start with what I have here. So there was one question that said, if you need to switch from FK to IK or vice versa in a shot, do you use some script or special tricks, or you just switch from one mode to another by snapping hands in the same position? This depends on where you work. At Weta, we had a tool there that would snap stuff, from FK to IK, would match the pose and you're done. At DreamWorks as well, we had a matching tool. If you have an IK, you just switch to FK, it switches automatically. Actually, at DreamWorks, when you're animating in FK, in the background is also animating the IK. So when you switch to IK, you don't need to snap. IK and FK is animated at the same time. So if you're animating the FK, it's animating the IK as well for you. So everything is live. It's really, really well done. So it depends on where you are. When I'm here, for example, I don't have these tools. So we have a snapping tool. Then I snap it there. I snap the pose back, and then I animate from that pose to the other pose. So it depends on where you're at, what kind of tools you have. There is definitely tips and tricks depending on where you're at. Different studios will have different tools. And snapping tool is very, very, very important to have at the studio. If you guys are in a place where they don't have it, make sure you ask for it, because it's not difficult to do. Programmers can do that, very easily. Even riggers can do that for you very easily. But it helps you to move forward. It helps you to get a lot of stuff done quicker. Another question, do you have strong hand drawing skills? Is it essential to getting jobs in a lot of animation studios, DreamWorks? You don't need it. You don't need to be amazing at 2D to get a job at DreamWorks, Disney, or Pixar. But the better you are at drawing, the better you are at your 3D. You know, I've done all 2D when I was in school, and I keep drawing every day. Drawing is part of my life, and drawing helps me a lot in my 3D, and it's vice versa, right? It's also when I get better at 3D, my drawings get better as well. So you'll see, you know, these two work really well together. And but that doesn't mean that if you don't know any 2D, you can't be a really good animator. I know some really good 3D animators that are not very good at 2D, but if you can draw, most definitely, if you're willing to learn 3D, you will get very good. But you don't need it. So, do you animate the parts of body that are hidden from shot cam's view? Yes, I do for the most part. I don't know if you guys remember. I don't want to show this again in case it freezes my camera again. But for on Rise of the Guardians, you know, there's a shot where Jack Frost is talking, and he's talking to Bunny, and they're both walking towards each other, and Jack Frost is talking to Bunny and saying, "Well, I thought you were a kangaroo, but if you're not a kangaroo, what are you?" That line, Jack is walking, and you don't see his legs, right? You don't see his feet. I actually animated everything, his feet, his placement, and everything. I just didn't polish his legs. Like, I did not go and polish all of his legs and cleaned it up, but I animated it. I wanted to be there because if you have somebody walking, when you're walking, there's a lot of stuff your hips do that affects your shoulders and your upper body. So it's very important to know as an animator where these foot plants are, what's happening, so you really understand the upper body. Very, very, very important to do this. So you want to animate everything even though you don't see it, because what you don't see really drives what you see. Okay, so it's very important to animate everything even when you don't see them. I don't believe in animators saying you don't see this on screen, so don't worry about it. Yes, don't clean it up. You don't need to polish it. Don't polish stuff you don't see, but animate stuff you don't see. Make sure you block it in there. Make sure you spline it and you get to a good place. You don't need to go polish it. Okay. Vadim is saying sound of my microphone from normal to bit quiet. It's connected in good way. Maybe I'm too close to it. Maybe. I think Vadim's saying there's a couple little issues with my sound here. I'm hoping that's not causing too many problems. All right. Anyways, we'll keep going. Let Vadim know if the sound is getting worse. But let me just quickly take a look at my audio here, making sure the audio is fine. All right, how's this? Hopefully this sound is better now. I've amped up the sound of my microphone. Hopefully that's better. All right, cool. So we're back. So next question is, do you animate possibility? Can you tell me about tips and tricks in eye animation? So eye animation is something that, you know, I spent a lot of time studying when I was on Avatar. You know, we had to do it because we were pushing the envelope on the how realistic the animation should be. And you know, one of the biggest issues in realistic animation out there, you know, feature animation that uses motion capture and stuff, it's the fact that eyes can be dead. You know, the dead eye. You know, the uncanny valley. You know, when you watch all the Zemeckis movies, for example, you watch Polar Express, or you watch Beowulf, or even Tintin, but I think it's a little better on there. You can see there's the dead eye, you know, and that's because the animators haven't really studied how the eye should move. But on Avatar, we were able to fix a lot of that. You know, we really spent a lot of time on studying the eyes, and the trick is to I mean, I teach this, I talk about this in my class. I have a whole class about eyes. You know, it's not something that I can really quickly describe how it works, but I broke down the eye into 3 separate parts, you know, and I explained to you how to animate each of them. There are 3 parts to the eye motion. There's the eye looks, then there's the eye darts, and then there's the eye keep alive. These are 3 things that you do in the eyes, and not always do you use all 3 at the same time. Sometimes you use only 2, but a lot of times you use all 3. You know, the eye looks are basically the stuff that your brain tells you. You choose as a person to look somewhere. You know, you go, okay, I'm going to look over here. These are my eye looks. The eye looks are big. They're the big motions that drives your body, that your brain is the signals your brain sending to your eye to look into places. The eye darts is when you choose to look at something. Let's say I choose to look at this pen right here. I don't look at just one spot on the pen. I draw the picture of the pen. If you look at one thing on an object and you stare at it for long enough, the other stuff starts to disappear because your brain is processing the whole image. But if you're only sending a little bit of the image, your brain can't process the rest. So what you need to do is when you're looking at something, you always look at parts of it, right? You look at the bottom, the middle, the top, and your brain is painting this picture. But when you do this, your eyes are actually doing little eye darts. You know, you look up, you look down, you look left, you look right. It's not random. It's really your brain needs the information. It sends it to your eyes. And then the third level is eye keep alive, is when you start looking at somebody, you know, your eye darts. What happens in between your eye darts? There's something called keep alive. That's the stuff that we did on Avatar that really helped keep our characters alive. And that's some stuff that I talk about in my class as well. When you animate, do you take into account the blur effect? Yes, you have to. That's a sad thing is, on Rise of the Guardians, we had a lot of that. You know, a lot of the motion was very fast, and motion blur hurts that. You know, so you have to go and work around motion blur and see if it blurs here, if it blurs here. A lot of times you look at the render, you're like, ah, this thing feels so soft because there's so much motion blur. So you have to go and speed up your animation to counter motion blur. So sometimes motion blur becomes a pain, but switch off your enable audio level compression in Minicam. Okay, guys, sorry about this. I'm gonna take a look at what audio compression. I have no idea how to do this. Audio compression, if you have enabled audio level compression in Minicam. All right, where would this be? Audio level compression. I am looking. Equalizer, audio playlist. Sorry for the delay here, guys. Here my sound has issues. Settings, audio. Listen to the sound from your microphone. Hello, hello. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. All right. Now I hear myself. Sound seems to be okay here. All right, I'm not sure with him. Ah, okay. All right, so maybe this will work now. I'm hoping maybe this will work. Maybe I move the sound over here. Maybe that's better. I don't know, but you guys can tell me. All right, let's move on to the next question. Tips and tricks for animation. When you animate motion blur, do you have a library with default animations such as cycles and basic facial emotions in the studio? Do you use it? Yes. A lot of places will have a library of stuff. For example, at DreamWorks, we had library of faces for characters like Jack Frost. He was very specific in what we wanted him to look like. You know, he was a very difficult character to animate because his facials, it was difficult to get him to look appealing. So usually in a movie, you have a lot of people working on one character, and it's difficult to maintain consistency. It needs to be consistent. The character needs to look the same throughout. So it is important for the lead guys to actually, for the leads to go and create libraries of these characters to for you to use. So that's incredibly, incredibly important. And yes, we do. Excuse me, on Jack Frost, I wasn't using much library stuff because we were the leads on it, so we were actually, you know, designing all the facials ourselves. But on How to Train Your Dragon 2, we had a lot of wing flaps done already. All the dragons had wing flaps built in there. Some people were using it. I was not using it because I'd rather really control the flaps based on what my shot is looking for. But it all depends on what, like sometimes when there's a background character, I would go and use the flaps. It all depends. You can use it. You don't have to use it. Sometimes when you use it, it gets you to a place much faster as well. Cool. Hopefully you guys can hear me. All right, next question. Could you tell me more about the blocking technique? Do you block overshoots and slow in, slow outs? Depends on the kind of character that you're animating. When I was on How to Train Your Dragon 2, I actually blocked. I did the battle between Toothless and the Bewilderbeast, and they were both blocked very differently. Toothless was blocked in step mode because he's tiny, he's small, he's much faster. It's easier to go step mode. I didn't really put a lot of overlapping and a lot of ease and ease out in my step mode in my blocking of Toothless. But then when I was animating Bewilderbeast, he's so big, I animated splined. So I already put my ease and ease out when I was blocking him because he was so big that if I do step mode, I have to put way more poses to make it feel like he's moving slowly and not just really fast, because it's hard to show slow motion when you're doing step mode in your blocking stage. So for a big character like this, I decided to block him splined. So I block him in spline, but I block Toothless in step mode. So definitely there is no one way to do it. You can definitely mix and match, depending on what works better for you. Vadim, let me know if the sound is working. Thank you. Cool. So do you use smears, multiples, and other animation gimmicks in your workflow? Not really. I use smear more than I use multiple characters. Again, that depends on the style of film you're making. On Dragons, we couldn't do this. It wasn't cartoony enough to do that. Avatar, of course, it was not cartoony enough. Even Rise of the Guardians, not much. But on a movie called Boo that I worked on that got canceled, there was a lot more smears in there. We were really pushing these characters to be much more cartoony, and yeah, definitely, we use smears, but not multiple characters. That's trickier depending on where you're at. DreamWorks, you couldn't just put two of the same characters in one scene. We were not using multiples, but we were using smears, definitely. Do you listen to the music while you're animating, maybe when polishing or splining, or do you work with unplugged ears, as Richard Williams says? Yes, and again, this is another... Oh, that's weird that the volume goes up and down, huh? So let me do one last little check here to make sure it's not in here. I'm scared of breaking anything as I'm doing this. My mic. Maybe this will work. Maybe this will work. All right, maybe now my sound is better, maybe? How about now? Maybe my sound is better now? Maybe. You tell me, you guys tell me. All right, so let's keep going. So when I'm polishing, yes, you can definitely put music in the background. You can definitely even, sometimes I have a movie that I've seen before in the background. You don't want to have, you don't want to have something that you have to watch to focus on. I believe that when you're doing your blocking, there shouldn't be anything. When you're blocking, when you start to animate, there should not be any kind of distraction in the background. You should really focus on your performance, focus on your timing, focus on your spacing. When you're polishing now, that's a different story. You already know everything. Now it's not brainless work, but you don't have to be spending so much time on your performance at that point. So you can listen to music. But then when you do your final touches and you're really focusing on the final tweaks to your animation, your past polish stage, and you're like, okay, this is ready, then of course, turn off the sound and focus on it, make sure everything is working properly. But I'm not against putting something in the background as long as you're not doing anything that's creative. When you have to be creative, turn off everything in the background. All right, this is very, very important. I know a lot of people that watches movies while they're animating and while they're blocking the animation. It's way too distracting. Really focus on what you're doing. When you're splining, then you can if you want. All right, next question. What helps makes a good transition from one emotional state to another, for example, from joy to sadness? That is a very tricky question because I don't know what the question really means. So what helps to make the transition? From joy to sadness. I guess animating it well is the answer. I don't know. Good reference. You can't just have a character who's happy, 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 then go to sadness. Doesn't make sense unless there's a motivation behind it. What helps is getting the right reference will really, really help. A good transition. Animation-wise, I'm not sure I can answer this question. It's a tricky question. I guess animating it well will help to transition. There's no way to transition from sad to funny. It all depends, right? It could be fast. If it's funny, if you want to be funny, it's like, ah! You know, that could be funny. Or it could be, and you're going to really sad. If you want to be serious, you know, it's very different. It all depends on the style of animation you're doing. So there's no really real answer to this question. How to strengthen the moment when a character must stop and think. For example, looking back. How to strengthen the moment. It's another very open how to make good animation question. These are different. These are difficult questions because it all depends on what is your character thinking about. Good reference is probably what makes it the strongest. If you have the good reference for it, you're gonna get it right. If a character is gonna stop and go, huh, that looks very stylized. But if a character does, that's a little more realistic, right? So good reference will give you the right answer to what you want to do. It all depends on the style of animation that you want to do. When there is a pause between actions of the character, what is your approach to moving holds? Moving holds. I just spoke about that in my class not too long ago. Moving holds tends to be like a huge problems for a lot of people, and you have to look at it as, don't be scared of moving holds. Don't just try to keep your character too stiff. That's because you need to, moving holds, if you see a moving hold, it's a problem. The thing about it is there needs to be a moving hold in your shots. How do you hide from it is by having a good flow, a good staging of your animation. I was just saying this to my students this morning, if my character is talking, let's say I'm talking, and I stop my animation as I'm moving to the left, I stop my animation like this. I'm floating, right? That's my moving hold, I'm floating. But if I do the same animation, I put that in the body, but there's a better flow in my animation. I allow the audience to see something else. My body is still, watch my body, it's still gonna be floating, but look what I'm gonna do. Yeah, man, this is so awesome. I mean, we have to go there. See that? You didn't notice that if I didn't tell you this, you wouldn't look at my body. My body is doing the same moving hold, but the audience is looking somewhere else, right? So the moving hold works if you know if there's a flow in your performance, if your audience is looking at something else. For example, if my character is gonna stop and I'm gonna put a moving hold. If I just do this, now it feels like it's floating. But if I do the same thing, you, my friend, are really in trouble, really in trouble. See that? Look what I did. I leave the moving hold there, I put a little bit of twist in my body, and I keep my performance. That, there's a contrast in my timing. My body, my hand, my head are very snappy, but my body can be moving hold, right? So there's a balance between how much moving hold you need to have. There's always moving holds, but allow the audience to see something else and not look at your moving hold. I can show you in a lot of my shots, there's a lot of moving hold. You just don't look at it. You're looking at something else. So that's the answer to this. Moving holds. In your opinion, is there a future for the traditional hand-drawn animation, or 3D simply replace it? There's definitely a future for 2D animation. People that say 2D animation is dead is way off the mark. 2D will come back. I mean, you know, there's such a charm in 2D that is not there in 3D, and it's not something that will die. It will go. It just like now, it's very scarce, right? You don't see feature animation in 2D as much, but TV animation, you know, 2D is there's a charm to it. You know, there's all the stuff in 2D that you have now is amazing. It's you know, even on TV. So TV animation will bring back 2D and you know, and definitely it's not gonna die. I think it's going to decrease. It's never gonna kill 2D animation. I don't think there'll be a day when no, you will never find a 2D animation. You know, what's going to happen is it's going to get rare, and people are still going to make it, and these movies are going to be so much better because people will spend a lot of time and passion and heart into it because they want to make it look good. People are going to get sick of bad CG. We're already sick of bad CG. There's so much CG out there, so much bad 3D movies. People are going to get sick eventually, and 2D will come back. I have no doubt that's going to happen. It's really not like, it's not a different technology. It's a different art form almost. No. Animation is animation regardless. But it's not like the radio is, even the radio is not dead, right? People still listen to the radio, but it's not like a different kind of type of TV. Like now, you know, flat screen TVs are taking over, you know, cathode ray tube TVs, you know, rear projection screens. Cathode ray tube TVs. But it's not like that, you know. CG and 2D are such different, they have different appeal. It's not just a different technology. Yes, it is, but it has a different appeal to it. Today, you won't see a guy buying a TV from the 80s going, I'd rather watch my movie on this crappy little TV. But you'll still find people buying The Lion King and going, oh man, this 2D animation is so amazing. It still holds, you know, it's never going to get old. So that's one thing. So 2D is not going to die, I think. Anyways, what is the pipeline of animation shot? I mean, there is, where is the starting storyboard? So the pipeline in a big studio is you basically, the writers will do the storyboards. The writers will board the sequence. The director or the screenplay writer will write the story first, and then they give it to storyboard artists. The storyboard artists will grab the scene and write the story as shots and sequences. And then these shots are sent to the layout department, and of course these characters have already been designed, been rigged and ready for animation. Then they send these storyboards to the layout department. The layout department grabs the camera, builds a camera for these shots for you, and puts all the characters in there for you to use. And then that shot is sent to the animators. Then the animators will animate the scene with all the stuff in the camera already done for you. You can go and tweak camera if you really need to, but that's the layout artist that will do that. And then you can animate your character. When your character is done animating, then you send it to the technical animators. The technical animators would put stuff like cloth and clothing and hair and all that stuff on it. Then it goes into lighting, and the lighting department will apply the textures and do all the compositing and all that stuff. Then, but during the same time, the effects department will be working. During the same time as the technical guys, the effects department is working on, for example, doing the water effects, the fire effects, and all this is sent to the lighting department, and then they will do the compositing of the fire effects. They'll do the compositing of any kind of ambient stuff that's on there with the lighting and stuff, and that's it. That's about the pipeline of how all this works. There might be other stuff in between that I'm missing, but these are the main departments, you know, pipeline wise. How many different artists are working on one shot? Oh my God, the whole company works on one shot. If you're talking about animators, usually it's just one or two. Sometimes you can have two depending on the size of the shot, but usually it's one animator. But there are many artists, right? Each department has the modeler works on the shot, the animator animates it, the rigger will rig it, the texture artist, the technical artist, the effects artist, the lighter, the compositor, the sound guy. On that same shot, a lot of people are working. There's a huge, there's a queue, there's a long line of artists that are working on one shot. But animators-wise, there's only one or two animators that work on it. How do you animate fantastic creatures like four-legged? Reference of them. How do I animate flying creatures? Well, reference, definitely. The reference, for example, in my talk about creatures, I talk about picking the right creature that will fit your character. picking the right creature that the audience can connect with. You know, for example, the banshees from Avatar, these were we used heavily reference from like eagles and hawks and birds. You know, the dragons, for example, dragons don't exist. You have to pick creatures. The Bewilderbeast from How to Train Your Dragon 2 was a reference from elks and bears and sea elephants and sea lions and elephant seals. And you know, there was a combination of sorry about that, guys. There was a combination of creatures that we use for the dragons if they don't exist. You know, for example, the little dragon from the little dinosaur from Waterhorse Crusoe, we used a puppy to animate him. Toothless was actually, we use a puppy and a kitten. You know, cats and dogs to build Toothless. It's both. In the first movie, it was mostly cats. In the second film, it was mostly dogs. So we reference creatures that we can connect with, that the audience can connect with. To see mistakes in your work. So let me see. How far you can gateway from storyboards when animating. So storyboards are very helpful because these story artists, they have to put one pose to define a performance, right? One pose to define a performance. And usually that pose is really, really strong. As an animator, it's always great to go to that storyboard and really watch what they did and the choice they made. And a lot of times I love looking at the storyboards and picking a pose from it that I really like, because they do a lot of the work of finding that pose. And as the animator, you can't waste the time of these storyboard artists. A lot of times I would go and go, look what they did. This is awesome. I'm going to try and do this. So yeah, you can go far away from the storyboard as you want, as long as your character still, you know, has the intent of the performance is still the same. But it's always good to look at these and learn from these storyboards artists, because they have one pose to get the emotion across, and usually that's the pose you want as an animator as well. What helps you to see mistakes in your work when you're working on it for a long time? That's going the fresh eye. There's a few things you can do. You can move away from your work for a long time, but you know, sometimes a few hours, and come back and look at it again. Sometimes I can take a whole night off. Another thing that helps me a lot is working on multiple shots at the same time. If you're working on one shot and you take a break, then what are you doing? You're wasting your time. You don't want to just work on one thing and then take a long break and go, Jalil said, I'm going to come back tomorrow and work on it. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, if you can work on a few different shots, you know, work on one thing, do work, take a break, go work on something else, work, take a break, come back to that, you go, oh, this is not working. And it's awesome at the studio to do this, because you get many shots to work on at the studio. So you can do this at the studio because you're working on one shot, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots at the same time. So you get to work on one, take a break, work on another, take a break, come back. And also that keeps consistency. You know, everything will move at almost the same pace. It really helps me. The other thing is, ask people to look at your work and give you notes. Very important. Put your ego aside. It's important to get notes from other people. It's important, even if it's your mom or your dad, they don't know animation, that's okay. Tell them to look at it. They may come to you and say, I don't know, there's something that looks weird, I don't know. Then you know something is weird. So you have to go, as the animator, you have to go and try and solve it. So even the person doesn't know animation, ask them to look at it and tell me, do you believe in what this person is saying? And you know, asking another animator is even better. And at the studio, it works great because you have your supervisor, you have the director, you have your colleagues and your peers around you. You can ask, and everybody's working on the same thing, so it makes it really easy. So a fresh eye, very, very important. How long does it take to become a DreamWorks Web digital animator? How long does it take? It could take as long as right after school, you can get a job, or it could take years to get a job. For me, it took me 5 months to get a job at Rhythm and Hues on Chronicles of Narnia. You know, I was there for I finished graduate school in May, and I got an offer in November. So May, June, July, August, September, October, November, 6 months to get my offer. And I know people that got jobs right after school. See, I didn't know any 3D. I had to go learn 3D and then apply. Some people you know, especially the new guys now, the new students, they know 3D from school, so it's much easier to get a job after school. Well, it's not much easier; it's actually more difficult because there are more people doing 3D now. But it depends. If you're really good, they don't care. They take you right after school. If you're not very good, then you need experience. You need to work somewhere else, get some experience to get a job somewhere else. You know, when I started Rhythm and Hues, I wasn't as good as I got to be at Weta. So I don't think I was going to get a job at DreamWorks when I started. So it took me time. It took me time to get better. As I was learning animation, I got better at Weta, and then I was able to get a job at DreamWorks. But you know, I don't think I would be able to get a job at DreamWorks from the very get-go. So it takes time, or it could be fast if you're very talented. There's one girl at DreamWorks right now. She finished school. She got a job. She was 21 when she got a job at DreamWorks. 21 years old, and she got a job at DreamWorks. She finished school. She got a job at DreamWorks. She's really good, so she got a job really fast. So it all depends on how good you are, how fast you are, and how well your training was. Let's see. What was your first job in animation? Was a deadline animation? I guess I've already answered that. My first job was at Rhythm and Hues, and I worked at the Chronicles of Narnia. How many seconds of animation has to perform an animator in a day? It all depends. At Weta, it doesn't matter. You can do as much as you want or as little as you want. At Weta, is as long as the shot is good, that's what counts. They don't look at how many you've done, how many minutes you've done. At DreamWorks, they do. You need to do 5 feet of animation, which I think is about 86 frames of animation. So that's what, 1, 2, 3.5 seconds of animation, I guess. That's about 3 seconds of animation a week to final, usually. But sometimes you do more, sometimes you do less. So there is no really strict rule for it. Is it possible to find freelance job for animator with showreel but without experience or working on studios? It's difficult to find freelance job if you don't have a demo reel. No one will trust you, of course. But if you don't have experience and your work is really good, maybe somebody might trust you. Right now, I'm getting a lot of freelance work because of my experience, because I've done it for a long time and I got to meet a lot of people. So I get to work on big games, you know, on Tomb Raider and DSX and freelance, you know, I get to work at this on home. And that's because I have connections, right? You get to meet people, people get to know your work and they trust you and they send you work. So it's not easy if you don't have the connections, if you don't have the experience. But if your work is really good, somebody might trust you, somebody might give it to you. You might get freelance work, but it's not easy though. When using motion capture technology, so hold on, let me see, I'm missing a couple questions. Do you use additional keys or prefer moving tangents to get the curve you need? Do you use additional keys? Oh, I like to use keys. I'm a key person. I like to add keys everywhere. But there's something said about that. When you add keys, make sure you go clean it up. My keys are very clean. At the end, though, when I'm done, I usually go back and delete keys I don't need. I do that. But I don't like overshooting. I hate overshooting my animation. I like to key my overshoot because if I like a pose, I choose to put that pose there. I don't like the computer overshoot for me, because if I have to edit or I have to speed up something, I lose that pose. If my curve is overshooting and I don't key it, and then I need to go later and squash my animation, then I lose my pose. I lost it. I always like to go key. I hate having overshoots and overlaps and all that stuff that are not keyed. I like to go keyed because I want that pose to be there. I like to have control over all my keys and not just randomly let the computer do it for me. Job animation. Is it possible to find a freelancer? Blah, blah, blah. Is there alternative career growth for animator, or animator stays being animator until death to them? No, of course a different career path. Right now, I'm a game designer. I'm the creative director here. So I moved from being an animator to becoming a lead animator at DreamWorks, and then from a lead animator, now I'm a creative director here at Steamroller Studios. So what I do is I barely animate now. You know, I have a few animators that work with me. I give them their task. So I actually set up I'm actually writing the story. I'm designing the world. There's a lot more things. stuff that I want to do, which is more fun, designing a world and writing a story than just animating. So you get to do more things. I get to animate as well, but I choose to animate whenever I want. So you do grow as an animator if you want to. Some animators I know have been animating for the past 3 decades. You look at James Baxter, a good friend of mine. He's been animating for a few years. For a few decades, and he loves it. He's a supervisor, animation director now, and he just loves animating. I don't think he might have other goals, but he loves it. He just loves animating. So yeah, there are other things you can do. Do you use additional keys? Do you career when using motion capture technology? To what degree the roles of the actor and animators? It is partially interesting to relate the facial expressions, eye movement, tinted are alive in these parts. How is it made? Wow, you want me to tell you how we made Tintin in this Q&A now? Well, we use a lot of the motion capture, depending on the type of movies you're working on. On Avatar, we had to do a lot of the keyframe facials was keyframed because we really wanted to push it. The motion capture data was really clean as well. On Rise of the Apes as well, we did the same thing. On Tintin, the motion capture was mostly used and not quite keyframed. There was more motion capture used than on Avatar. And nowadays, they're using more motion capture. So there's usually a team called the motion edit team. What they do is they go and clean up the motion capture and make sure it's clean for animators to use. And in a lot of times you don't need to be tweaking the motion capture, but in sometimes you have to go and push the animation, push the motion capture to look better, to be more exaggerated so it reads. Sometimes motion capture tends to be a little blurry, a little unconvincing. So you have to unconvincing. So you have to go and really push it. Jhalil, can you suggest your favorite internet resource as information for learning animation to get an inspiration? Really, the best resource for me is watching movies, guys. There is no better resources than sitting down. When I was in school and I was studying animation, I'll tell you guys what I used to do. And you guys can do it if you're learning animation. I used to do this, and a few friends of mine used to do that. And it really helped me to become a good animator. There is no books out there that you can learn animation from, even though I respect Survival's Guide, and I respect Richard Williams, and I respect The Illusion of Life, Frank and Ollie. Amazing books. I've read all of them. But animation is really about practice and training your eye. You really have to train your eye. You can tell your brain, you can tell your brain, do it this way, do it this way. You can read, but unless your eye is trained, you're not going to get it right. So what I used to do, a couple of friends and I, we used to watch movies in slow motion. I remember we watched Robin Hood, Disney's Robin Hood, 2D animation. We watched The Sword and the Stone. We watched all these movies in slow motion. We watched The Incredibles in slow motion. We watched The Incredibles. I started in slow motion after I already graduated, because it was after I graduated school. But I remember Toy Story 2. We watched in slow motion so we could study the animation. What we would do is we would sit down in a room, our drawing book, and we would be drawing, and we'd let the movie in the background play in slow motion. The movie would last 5 hours, right? It's a full 5 hours, one movie. And we would look up from time to time and look at it and go, wow, look at that. What was that? And then we'd pause it, rewind it, rewatch it, and go, wow, the timing is so cool. Then we'd go back and watch it stop frame by frame and go. And we would do that so much. We learned so much from it. We learned so much from watching these movies in slow motion. Our eyes trained to watch all these timing and see how they did it. We did this for a whole 2 years. We watched movies like that. We would, every weekend, we'd get together and watch one movie. Every weekend, we'll just watch one movie in slow motion, 4 or 5 hours. We'll get together and just draw, and look up. Oh, this is awesome. Draw, look up. Oh, this is awesome. You learn so much, and we all of us got jobs. I don't know because of that, but we were very dedicated. We did a lot of study, a lot of research, and observation is the best thing you can do. And learning from the best is also really, really good. So that was one little thing that we did. Was the best inspirational stuff for me is watch movies. Why did you choose to get formal education in arts? Many people say it's not necessary. How did you choose the university? It is absolutely necessary. Some people, it's guys, don't believe when people say, you don't need to go to school to get a job. You need to go to school. There are a very small group of people that are naturals. They don't need to go to school. They can do it. It's very rare. Some people believe they can do this, but they can't. School gives you structure, and structure is incredibly important. School gives you experience. It doesn't matter what school you go to be honest. You can go to a cheap school, but if you work hard, and the one thing you need to know is when you go to a school, no matter how small or big it is, don't compete with only the people that are around you in the school. Don't look at your neighbor and go, I need to be better than you. No, look at the big movies out there and tell these movies you got to be better than them, because you need to get a job. When I was in school, a lot of the students were competing against me going, how can I be better than Jalil? I never looked at them and said, I need to be better than you. I was looking at Toy Story 2 and I said, I need to be better than these animators to get their jobs. I want to work at Pixar or at DreamWorks. I didn't really want to work at Pixar, but I looked at DreamWorks and said, I want to be better than these guys working there. That's how you get a job, because if you apply for a job in a big studio, you need to be as good as the guys there or better to get the job, right? So if you compete with your neighbor in school, they are not good. So you're competing with somebody who's not good. You feel better about yourself because you're better than them. That can happen, but that's not the truth. The truth is you have to compete against movies. So work together with your neighbors. Work together with your friends. Ask questions. You learn together because you guys are competing against the big guys to get a job, right? It's only when a big guy leaves the industry that there's a free opening. Like right now, I left DreamWorks, so there's an open spot if you guys want to apply. No, I'm kidding. The people, when the older guys leave the studios, then you guys have more space to come in, but you guys still have to compete. A lot of times you have to compete to get a job. Hopefully I've answered your question. I'm not quite sure. School is important. Right, internet research school. Your LinkedIn bio says you first learned mechanical engineering and then went to animation. Looks like a complete U-turn in professional choice. What happened? Yeah, what happened is I chose the wrong path. I love math and science and physics, which has helped me a lot in animation, guys. Understanding physics behind animation, understanding the science behind animation is very, very important. Having gone to mechanical engineering and doing science and doing math and physics really helped me to understand the reason for things to move. So I can't say how important science has been to me, and I didn't know at that time. I didn't know animation would be so driven by science and physics. To me, I was going into the arts, but animation is the art of motion. Motion is science. Motion is physics. So if you understand all that, it's super important. So that has helped me a lot to understand animation. I got to say, engineering has been saving grace for me. Do you have any more artists in your family? Yes, my sister is a concept artist. She is actually our concept artist working with us on our game, Deadwood. My mother is a painter. I mean, she's been painting since I know her, since I was born. She taught me, how to draw, and she got me into animation. I gotta say, my mom is one of the main reasons I'm animating today, because she's a storyteller and she was really good at making me feel making me feel in a world that doesn't exist. She would write stories just for me, create characters just for me, and she would create these little characters and cut them with the scissors, and then take like little tweezers and then move the characters on a piece of paper for me and tell me a story with it. And then she goes, the character needs to sit down here, and then she would draw another character sitting down and cut it out and then put the character on the chair sitting down. That was animation with a piece of paper. I didn't know when I was a child. It's only now when I look back, I'm like, oh, my mom was animating for me, and she didn't even know either, So, definitely, my influence from my mom has been, huge. Can you draw why did you choose 3D over traditional 2D? Yes, I guess I can. I did 2D in school, and I only did 3D because I had to get a job. You know, I was on a visa, and my visa was expiring, so I needed to leave. If I didn't leave, I needed to leave after if I don't get a job. So 2D was very slow at the time. There was not much work in TV as well at the time, and I needed to get a job, so I went and learned 3D. That's why I do 3D. But now I'm back into doing 2D stuff. I mean, if you guys want to take a look at a little 2D animation I did about 2 years ago, I did a little 2D test. It was a little short that I did with the Hulk and the Wolverine. Hulk and Wolverine having a scream match. They were both screaming, ah! And I did a little 2D. It's on YouTube. If you type Hulk Wolverine scream match, and you'll be able to see it. I still love doing 2D, and I can't wait to do more 2D. When I have some more time after the game, finish the game, I'm going to go back into 2D animation and do some more 2D stuff because I love 2D animation. Do you only work for big studios or big movies? Don't you like small projects, something that you can do yourself? Yeah, exactly what I just said. You know, I love doing little projects, and whenever I get a chance, I like to do that. Big movies pays the bills. Big movies satisfies my need for, you know, for acceptance, I guess. You know, my need to feel like I've achieved something. I work on a big film, but I enjoy working on a small project. I left DreamWorks to be here. I'm not getting paid here. You know, I'm paying myself. You know, here, you know, all my savings. This is all our savings. Me and a couple colleagues. You know, we are here. We build the studio on our own to work on our little game ourselves. So. You know, as much as I love working in big studios, I love doing my own thing. Absolutely. Looks like you specialize in animating animals. Is this a conscious choice or is it coincidence? Was there a moment that you said to yourself, I want to be? No, that was, I fell into it. Well, I know, let me take this back. I love working on monsters. That's to me better than working on acting. Right? I love monsters, but I fell into it. You know, if I got a job at Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks when I graduated school, I would have gone there for sure. I wouldn't have said, nope, I only want to do monsters. No, but I prefer monsters. Now, when I look back, I prefer monsters. You know, I grew up liking monsters more than liking cartoon characters. So for me, it was a blessing, you know, to be at Weta at so early in my career and get to work on big monsters. That's why when I went to DreamWorks, I got to work on Rise of the Guardians, which was all acting and all characters. It was awesome. But when I went on to Dragons, to me, I loved it even more. I was like, this is awesome. I love monsters. I love dragons. That was more for me than anything else. So absolutely, I love monsters more than acting characters. Do you work at the office or from home? Which way do you like best? What does your typical work day flow spend animating? Yeah, I mean, I love working. You know, at the studio is the best than working from home. Home, there are too many distractions. You know, you want to watch a movie, you want to spend time with your kid. You know, my daughter does not let me work. When I'm working, she wants to sit on my lap and move my mouse, you know. So try animating when someone else is trying to move your mouse. Good luck. It's almost impossible. It's actually impossible. And, you know, and then she would point, you know, she would point at the screen and laugh at my animation too. So I don't like that. No, I'm kidding. But it's very difficult at home to work. But if you have a closed-off office, maybe that's better. But what I like about working in the studio is the environment, the inspiration, the interaction with people around you, having people look at your work, help you move forward, the creative process of brainstorming, you know, getting ideas from others. That is, you know, so good. That's why we built the studio, because we didn't have to build a studio. We could easily have just, you know, worked from home. We were working from home to make our game, but then we decided, let's build a studio. Let's hire people. Let's make an environment out of this, and it's been awesome. Let me show you guys the studio. So this is where our programmer sits over there. This is our this is my Hulk statue. You can see this is our kitchen over there. This is more desk with more you know, artworks on the wall. This is another person's office over there. So there's tons of stuff. You know, this is our studio. So I'm getting a question from Vadim. Oh, got some questions over here. All right, cool. So let's keep going, and I'm gonna keep answering this question. Do you work at the office or at home? Okay, great. So yeah, I like working at the office more than I like to work at home. That's the quick answer. Okay, we got some more questions. 5 more questions. Can you give advice on how to try to train a cartoon style animation to take a good overshot? I should watch classical Disney trips and train using that stuff. Thanks. Yeah, how to train a cartoon style animation. Yeah, definitely. To train your eye, guys, to understand, watch what others are doing. Don't copy what they do. Watch what other people are doing. If you're doing a very cartoony style animation, go and watch animation out there that are very pushed, exactly like Ratatouille is very pushed. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball, very, very pushed. Samurai Jack, very, very pushed, really stylized pieces of animation out there. Secret of Kells, Song of the Sea, some really stylized animation out there that really shows, like, Castle Transylvania as well, has very pushed and stylized animation. If you want more realistic stuff, then you watch Rise of the Guardians, then you watch How to Train Your Dragon 2, more realistic stuff. But stuff like Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen, some beautiful animation in there. They're all different styles. So do study these movies. Watch Ratatouille, watch The Incredible. Watch these movies that will really help you. But also go watch the 2D stuff. My God, there's so much awesome timing and posing and amazing stuff in these old 2D stuff. I used to watch Sword in the Stone and Jungle Book, and the Jungle Book. My God, there's some amazing timing in there. Some amazing performances of Jungle Book. Make sure you guys go and watch these. So good. Sure, whether to create animation in step mode and why step mode is more convenient than spline. Step mode is not more convenient than spline. Like I said, when I was animating the 2 dragons from How to Train Your Dragon 2, the Bewildered Beast and Toothless, I animated it both ways, spline mode and step mode. But step mode is the way to go if you're doing acting and performance. Go step mode, because in step mode it's like drawing. You're doing a full pose, you put it there. It's a key frame. Very important to understand all your key frame. Spline, the computer does it for you, and your eyes stop to see the problem. Your brain is not working because your computer is already moving it for you. You think it's right, but no. Tell yourself, you have to put the pose. You have to tell the computer where to go. Don't let the computer animate for you. That's why step mode is so good, because you chose the pose. You build the pose. Sometimes when I'm animating, I stay in step mode every 2-3 frames. Every 3 frames, I'm step mode. So my animation is almost fluid. It's almost spline, but it's still in step mode. Oh, my camera just blurred. It's almost spline because I'm animating on every 2 frames, every 3 frames. It's almost spline, but it's still in step mode. It's tiny little steps. And then I just spline it and I delete the keys I don't need. But I have full control over my curve. That's why I like step mode more. But for some characters, I had to go spline, like the Bewildered Beast. It was so big that it was easier to go spline. But I made sure that I pay attention to every single one of my pose. Why create animation easier to step mode and spline mode? How to analyze the scene, live action for animation, right? Why do you advise to consider analyzing a scene? I talk about that in my class, guys. It's a whole lecture about how to analyze a shot. What are the things to look for? Thinking while the character's thinking. Look at all the choices the actors makes. Pay attention to the timing of their thoughts. Pay attention to what happens in between their dialogue. What happens when they're not saying something? How do they react to somebody else's reaction? There's a whole class about that. It's difficult to answer a question like this very, very quickly. What resources on the mechanics the body would advise you to look? Books, website. What resources on the mechanics of the body? The best resource is to go out there and look at people yourself and study. But I've used, when I was at Weta, I used a lot of the Rhino videos. I forgot how they call it, but characters in animals. I think it was called Animals in Motion. And then it was also Human in Motion and Animal in Motion. I think these DVDs were very helpful because I got to really watch how people really moves, and you get to have really good videos of profiles and front and backs. Really good material. So these videos are very helpful. But the best thing is to go out there, guys. Go out there and study and film yourself and bring a camera with you. I used to do that. Go out with a camera and film people do stuff around, and then go back home and watch it and study it. I talk about that in my class as well. Cool. So here's another question. Could you give an example of analyzing the real scene, human-like, to create a movement? Does not exist in reality, but believable, based on a reference, and to tell what makes it believable. Here's an example of analyzing a real scene. Well, that could take a long time to actually do. I have to find something, and there's no sound, so it's difficult. But we definitely do a lot of reference. You know, to answer this question quickly, an example would be when I was animating Valka for How to Train Your Dragon 2. There's a scene where Valka is holding onto these dragons, and we shot reference of ourselves. You know, we couple of friends and I, you know, got together and shot a friends of ourselves holding onto the dragons. And then I went to my desk and I studied my reference. I studied my timing of how my hand grabbed onto the dragon, caressed the dragon, and I pushed it. I made it a little faster, you know, the poses a little stronger. You have to push your reference. You can't just copy your reference. You can start by copying your reference, but then you have to go and really push it to make it look right. So, you know, these poses, you know, these you know, key poses are important, you know, for you to find from your reference that you actually shoot. Sorry, I'm not answering this question. You know, I'm not going into it because that could take an hour to actually just go through analyzing a shot and showing you how to do it. But if you're interested, take my class, guys. There's 12 classes of me just talking about how to do that. Cool. All right. So I think that's probably it. Thank you guys a lot for inviting me and having me over here and all your awesome questions. I was able to get through all of them, which is really cool. I'm losing my voice already. But thank you very much, and hopefully I'll see you guys either in my class or I'll see you guys in another talk in the future. But thank you, Vadim, for having me over. And sorry again for all the technical issues, guys. We're going to make sure we try and iron this next time around. But I'm sure Vadim will post this video somewhere for you guys to watch again. Cool. All right.